We are live for the, I think, ninth coffee break. Welcome, Vicky Buelens, lawyer in conflicts at work. Is that a little bit?
That's
In,
about right. That's about right.
yeah. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm very excited to be on your coffee break.
Yeah. Why are you excited?
Well, I'm very passionate about the topic we're going to talk about, and I've been following you and your Congress for many years already, so I'm a bit of a fan. So it's always nice to talk about the things you're passionate about in an environment where you feel welcome and at home. So that's why I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, and you're in fact you're an expert. You're a lawyer. Um, in conflicts at work. So there we see, of course, the link with happiness or unhappiness at work. Can you a little bit? Can you explain a little bit to our to the people watching us what you are exactly doing?
Well, I'm mainly focused on helping CEOs, board members, employers, leaders, HR managers, so people on the work floor. I'm helping them when they are in a professional conflict. And my main focus there is to get solutions on the table that keep us out of court. That's a bit my main focus for obvious reasons. Maybe that's a different coffee break, but I think everybody understands the benefit of not going to court. So that's what I mainly focus on. And since I've been doing this for 23 years now. So since I've seen so many conflicts go bad and people really getting stuck in a conflict, I developed a strategic plan, so to speak, to help people guide through these professional conflicts. And I wrote a book about it. It's called Fired Up. That's what we're going to talk about today. And in that book, I support people on the work floor on both sides, but I focus on employers mainly because they're the biggest win can be found. It's nice to help individuals, but if you help an employer do better, then you help 10 or maybe 100 individuals at the same time. So that's why I'm very passionate about that part. And I help them by giving them a strategic plan, really step by step, which allows them to organize better exits. That's a bit in a nutshell what my focus is and where I'm so passionate about.
Now, in 85% of the cases, you can avoid going to court.
Yes, very
That's
proud of that.
yeah, that's amazing. But it's rather unusual to have a lawyer trying to avoid court cases because isn't there your money?
Yes, but I'm a bit of an idealist. I think when you choose labor law for the right reasons, it's never about the money. I'm passionate about people and yeah, working together. Divorces would be too emotional for me as a person. That's a bit too close in their private life. But conflicts at work keep a nice balance between the human aspect and still people have a healthy distance. It's not about life and death. So I'm very emotionally involved in the conflicts at work. And I think if you want to provide the best possible solution, it is out of court. And then it's not important how I make the choco on my bread every day. It's about helping people. It's about deblocking people in a business conflict.
And how do you do that? How do you do that?
Well, I think, of course, but everybody will immediately understand the biggest win is to be found in communication. I'm not the first and the only one to say that, but the same is true in conflicts. People start off very enthusiastic when they start working together. Companies put a lot of money and effort in the selection, the onboarding, afterwards the retention. That's a very positive story, but then sometimes something happens and the relationships go sour, and then all of a sudden it's very negative and communication blocks. People are miles apart, and yeah, then it becomes very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. And is it always the employer heading for the for the conflict, heading for a court case, going to the lawyer? How is it split?
No, I think it takes two to tango. Also in exits, so it's the responsibility is on both sides of the working relationship. Um, I'm a very big advocate of the theory that the employer is not responsible for the personal happiness of the employee. But what I do think, and what is very important in conflict, is that I think that the employer is responsible for the psychologically healthy environment.
Mm-hmm.
And on one hand, you have both parties that have a responsibility and that have a say in how sour the relationship goes and how the exit evolves. But I think it's the role of the employer to take the first step in creating a positive or a more positive environment on the level of communication, settlement intentions, all these aspects that can make it more positive, to take the first step and to take his or her responsibility. So it's not a one-sided story, but I think focusing on the employer is smart because it's his or her company. He's in control most of the time.
Mm-hmm. But is it the employer contacting you? What is your role? How do they come to your office?
I think until 5 years ago, it was 50-50. We worked for employees and employers. But since I've been pushing employers with my book and with my lectures to do better, we see that the shift has been to 70% employers now that we work for. And we really focus on coaching them on forehand. So before they enter the exit procedure, because there again the biggest win is possible. Normally you go to a lawyer when things have already burned, and then it's our job to put the fire out. But of course, if you can coach and guide up front, then the chance, that's why my success rate of keeping cases out of court is so high, probably because I can do so much up front, and then the entire procedure goes, it's like there's sugar injected. It's so much easier then.
Okay. And what do you advise these companies then the moment that they come to you? Is it then with the question to avoid the court case? Do they already ask to avoid it, because otherwise they just can't fire and then without having a lawyer, and then waiting if the employee is reacting yes or no?
The first question of employers is not, or they don't come to me to avoid specifically a court case. But I think when they call me, they already know that that's my focus, that I will try to do it in a positive way. My book is very precise. It's about correct and respectful dismissal, so that it speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
But the first question they ask is just guide us through it. There's a big taboo on dismissal, and people wrongly assume that the taboo is on employees, that they're ashamed of being fired. Uh-huh. But the same taboo is on employers. They often know that they don't have the right skills or the right mindset to go in an exit procedure in a correct way and to go towards a settlement. Mm-hmm. And create ambassadors instead of very sad and broken ex-employees. So they know it from themselves, but they don't know how to do better. And that's the main reason why they call me. Just help us. You have so many years of experience. You've seen so many exits. Just point out to us what we can do better to get that result.
Yeah, but it seems to me that these are already like open-minded, like no, they are not open-minded. Or no open-minded companies asking you to guide them?
They're not per se open-minded because it's a sad thing to say, but the really open-minded employers is not the biggest percentage of the Belgian labor scene. So then I would not have a lot of work. The biggest group of employers contacting me is just employers who already realize the damage that results from a bad exit. So the employers that are still totally in the blue or in the gray, I don't know what the expression is like, but they're oblivious and then they don't call me. Then they first fuck it up, to say it really. They fuck it up and then they call. So the biggest group is the employers who already realize we have a lot to gain by doing better, but we're not confident or practiced enough to do it alone or on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So in most cases, it's not the first people they fire.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And for them, what's their drive to do it? Is it money? Is it compassion? What is it?
It's mainly the fear of making a legal mistake at first. But then when I explain to them what the benefits are on the level of your employer branding, and what's there to win with creating ambassadors, then their eyes go like this and they get very enthusiastic, and then they forget about the law case and the money, and they want to have the best result possible.
Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? Turning ex-employees into ambassadors?
You go right to the to the hot question. Well, it's of course it's a multi-step plan. It's not like you have a magical stick and you just say one right thing and then it happens. You have to do several things right. And the first thing that's very important is for employers is you have to prepare. Mm-hmm. There are very few. I interviewed a lot of high qualified HR managers for my book Fired Up. And they are very skilled, but that's really the happy few. So you cannot expect a regular leader or HR manager to just read one article about it and to go ahead. So there's a lot to gain in preparation. Preparation of your own mindset, preparation by asking yourself and doing some introspection, asking yourself, was I the best leader or employer in this operation, or can maybe also point out things that I could have done better or we as a company could have done better. Of course, to learn from, but also to use in the communication with the employer that you're saying goodbye from. Because of course, there's nothing as strong. You have saying sorry is very strong, but the second very strong thing is taking a part of the failure, if we can already call it failure. I will maybe come back to that later. But that part of the failure is also your responsibility. It's like a balloon full of air. If you take part of the blame on you let the air go free, and then the conversation will be much more serene and respectful from both sides. Mm-hmm. So you have to prepare your mindset, you have to do introspection, you have to have your numbers ready. You have to realize that the employee in front of you will have many questions. And even if the questions are not from him or her at that moment, you have to realize that once they leave the conference room and they go home, they have a wife or a husband or family who will have questions. Or they will have colleagues calling them who have questions. So if you want to avoid escalation in a conflict at work, and if you want to avoid eventually an ex-employee going to a lawyer, and you want him or her to become an ambassador, so you don't want them to go to a lawyer, then it's very important to have answers. That's also part of the creating that psychologically safe environment, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you put everything on the table that prepares the communication environment for a respectful and correct exit. So preparation is the first step. Then coaching the employers on their communication skills. It's very different to learn because a lot of leaders are coached already, luckily. But there's a big difference between skilled or being skilled in negotiating than being skilled in a difficult conversation like an exit. Because what employees don't realize enough, in my opinion, is that the emotion is not only on that side of the exit, it's on both sides. So also the decision to terminate a labor contract is also a build-up on the employer's side. There's frustration, there's disappointment, whatever emotion, there's a lot of emotion. So you have to guide employers specifically and show and teach them skills to communicate in that kind of environment. Also nonverbal communication. It's all often in the details. So that's the second step. So first you have the preparation, then you have the communication, so the conversation itself. Because another thing that a lot of employers then don't realize or don't realize enough is that when employees go to a union or to a labor lawyer, the last thing they ask is money. The first, when I have like a conversation or a consultation with an employee, approximately it takes about 1 hour. The last 15 minutes are about what am I entitled to? What about the money? What about the financial aspect? So 30 to 45 minutes is about how they were treated or how they feel they were treated. Maybe it's not always correct, but yeah, it's a very strong feeling. So it's very important to realize that the way you approach this person is the thing that is going to have the most impact on the outcome of the exit. So you have the preparation, and you have the exit conversation itself. Then you have the final phase, where it's very important that you show, whether you like this person or dislike him or her, that you show appreciation. It's a misunderstanding or a misconcept, I think, that because the cooperation stops, that everything was bad. When that would be true, it would already have stopped after a few days or a few weeks. It went on for weeks or months or years, so there was a lot that was good about the cooperation. And if you want to avoid people having the feeling that they have to leave through the back door, which is the thing that hurts them the most and makes them the opposite of ambassadors of your company, you have to make sure that they feel appreciated. And people are not stupid. People can cope with saying goodbye, starting over, realizing that there maybe was a mismatch. People will not be traumatized by that, but they will be traumatized when they, to their feeling, gave a lot to a company and that there is no appreciation. So the third thing or step in creating ambassadors is showing appreciation. And of course, the first two phases are very important, but the thing that's going to make the biggest difference is the amount and the quality of appreciation that you give in that third phase. So you can have different levels. You can, for example, give a very positive, I can't find the word in English, but a letter where you praise the ex-employee and that the ex-employee can use for future employment. So a nice letter, a respectful, authentic, nice letter. That's step one. I always advise all my clients to always write a letter. It's such a small effort, and it's the value is so high, so big. But you can also go a step further and realize that there's nothing wrong with giving the same amount of energy and attention to offboarding than to onboarding. And for example, if you are a company that blows a lot of whistles and has a welcome party and there's a nice drink with the new colleagues, or there's maybe a company movie that they make, or you have a nice activity, whatever you choose for the onboarding, when everything is still with rose petals, you could choose to do the same amount of effort at the offboarding side. And the key ingredient in this is, I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but after 23 years of dismissal, I've seen a lot of human interaction, so I know a little bit about psychology. And the main ingredient is the fact that a negative experience or memory is, I forgot the number, but a lot of times more has a much bigger weight, than a positive one. So you can go a bit overboard in the offboarding experience because you want an ambassador, and an ambassador is somebody who closes the door behind him with a positive emotion, a positive experience, a positive memory. So what you have to do in that final phase, in my opinion, is to make an employee forget about the difficult conversation and about the fact that it had to stop for whatever reason. Also important that you give the correct reasons. We're not children. People like to know what went wrong on both sides. But make something respectful, dignifying. You cannot imagine, Jim, how many companies we still see that prevent ex-employees after an exit conversation to say goodbye to their ex-colleagues. How human can it be? So really, like you're living like a thief who stole a lot of money. We're changing the locks while we're having your exit conversation. Call your wife because your company car is not taking you home anymore. Situation, I'm not making it up. They're very frequent in our law firm that we see that. So the third component of creating ambassadors is give attention to the offboarding procedure or phase of that dismissal.
Yeah, I see we have some questions, and I know Iris is there, and her question is, how do you ensure that appreciation and owning your failures is not perceived as fake?
As is not perceived as fake, I think if they are authentic, then there's no risk for that. What you have to realize, I think, is that there's a breach of trust. That's for sure. That's the starting point. You're saying goodbye, you're splitting up, so there is discomfort and mistrust. So it's not when you say, even as authentic as you can, you give your feedback. Iris is right. The employee is going to feel like this is maybe not trustworthy, or they're just giving me a nice sounding reason, but it's fake. But if you keep it, if you stick with it, and you bring it authentically, and you take part of the responsibility, and you put effort in this conversation, you will see, and not so difficultly, you will see a shift in the attitude and the openness of an employee. And even if people don't give you the confirmation that they're taking it seriously and that they're accepting your feedback, they will after a while. So it's not, I'm not saying creating ambassadors is a quick fix. It's not in one ideal conversation that they walk out and that they're going to shout, this was the best company ever worked for. It might take some time, but you have to stick with your with the plan, the step-by-step plan that we present in our book and that we do in our coaching sessions. You stick with it, and you will see that people will rebuild a different kind of trust.
Yeah,
I've seen it so many times, so I'm really confident about this topic.
Yeah.
I hope Iris that answers your question.
We have another question. Have you experienced that employers have a mindset where employee is the primary focus? In other words, that it's not mainly about profit and sales?
No, in my opinion, the companies that I see already for, I think, more than 10 years now. So in the beginning, maybe it was colder and more about numbers and strategy, but companies are getting so much smaller. So for me, that's already in the past. I realized that there's a lot of work to be done. We're not nearly there yet, but it's definitely going in a very positive, good direction. Absolutely. I see a lot of companies with very good intention and with their main focus on the human capital, for sure.
Yeah. So,
Not paid by companies. Allez, I mean, I don't have shares. It's an honest insight.
yeah. So the evolution is going in the right direction. Did you ever had a case where you could avoid an exit and turn it into yeah?
Yes, yes, and now it's easier than ever, of course, with the war on talent, which is also a topic for a whole coffee break. But now it's easier than ever. People are, if you, a few years ago, when I suggested looking at the at the skills and capacities of an employee in a bigger scope, and maybe thinking together with the employer, can we not redirect internally? There was a lot of hesitation and no, we made the decision and allez, who are you sweet miss, you're a lawyer, and stick to your job. So I didn't really get that message across. But now times have changed so dramatically. And when I put that aspect on the table, their ears go wide open. Okay, we're very interested. Can you please show us legally? Because of course a contract is binding. So first of all, can you show us legally what is possible? Because I always compare a labor contract with a rental contract. When you sign to rent the first floor for 500 euros a month, that's what you're entitled to. And your landlord cannot just say, because he changes his opinion, we're going to give you the second floor for 1,500 euro. It's the same legal framework around a labor contract. So it's not because the employer thinks, but we have somebody here in marketing, he's not bad at sales, let's not fire him, keep him and put him in sales. It's not that simple. But on the other hand, there's a lot possible. So when I present that alternative to employers, yes, they listen. They're quite enthusiastic about it these days.
Yeah.
So it's nice. And that makes it very easy for me to keep it out of court.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, we have to finish here. For the people watching us, Vicky, do you want to join us in our Facebook community if people have additional questions, if they want to contact you, whatever, for whatever reason, finding like a lawyer who is coaching companies how to avoid or how to smoothen exits?
Yes,
So,
it would be a great honor to join your community.
so thank you very much today for this inspiring talk, and for I think a new type of lawyer, the coaching lawyer.
Let's hope that it also inspires my colleagues.